As the pandemic drags on, my mind keeps circling back to events that happened in the first week of March of 2020. They mark the end of normal times and the first inklings of the avalanche that rolled over society a week after in mid-March. I spent the last weekend in February visiting my son in the Boston area. We enjoyed museums, attended a Bernie Sanders rally on Boston Common, and we ate Thai food. On Sunday, March 1st, we attended the PAX East video game conference at the Convention Center in Boston, which was very near Amtrak South Station, where I would get the train back home after we attended the event. My son and I checked in, and then I stowed my suitcase, and then we started checking out the swirling, crowded show floor. The place felt very chaotic, with attendees in costumes of their favorite characters jostling with the people working at the booths of the video game and other companies that had these big splashy displays of the products they were hawking. We wandered around, and my son stopped to play a game. And since I'm really more of a social observer than a gamer myself, I just looked around and made notes and took pictures of the games that were getting attention then, March 1, 2020. My photos from that day are really striking. They show the packed show floor with signs posted asking attendees to not block the aisles because it was that crowded. I saw masks, both primarily people wearing the costumes of their favorite characters, but also people that were wearing plain ones showing some beginning awareness of the strange virus that was starting to impress itself upon our consciousness. A lot of the games of the time had a violent apocalyptic look to them, which is typical in the game industry, but looking back now, has a kind of bitterly ironic edge to the event. Some of the titles were Zombie Army 4, Insurgency Sandstorm, Destroy All Humans with an exclamation point, Wasteland 3, Iron Harvest 1920 with a post-World War I feel to it, The Survivalists, Partisans, Cosmocrats, with the title written in fake Cyrillic letters, and Disintegration, which in my mind should have been adapted to the economic of the impact of the pandemic that was barreling in on us. Well, from the show I took Amtrak back to Stamford, and the ride was just typical, quiet. I got to do some reading. It was very enjoyable. There were no safety precautions being taken at the time. It turned out that was the last trip I took on any kind of public transportation in the rest of the year 2020. Only later did I learn that a superspreader event had been taking place in Boston at the moment I was there. It was an international biotechnology conference that was held February 26th and 27th. I learned that it ultimately infected up to 300,000 people. And I just have to look back and shudder and think, how close did I come to being involved in that conference? By the next Saturday, March 7th, 2020, the pandemic demanded some notice at a country club in Stamford, Connecticut, where the local Jewish Community Center held a gala event honoring a couple that I know. Things were changing. People there were talking about the pandemic and even were kind of nervously joking about it, with people doing, fist bumps and kind of chuckling rather than hugs and handshakes. Still, by today's standards, the gala looked perfectly normal. Groups posed for photos with Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, who was one of the speakers that night, and people packed in tightly at tables for the dinner. I was actually in a very good mood that night. I bought my partner Naomi this lovely necklace as part of a silent auction that was taking place. I was ready to have some fun. But what I didn't know at the time was that COVID-19 was already spreading fast all around Stamford, with New Rochelle, New York being a hot spot. As CNN reported on March 24th, the first known case in New Rochelle was discovered March 2nd, a couple of days before the gala. By March 10th, the number had shot up to 108 coronavirus cases, evidence of exponential growth. The containment zone was established 2 days later. Even closer to Stamford, a superspreader event took place on March 5th in Westport, Connecticut, and that was called Party Zero. A Fox News story also on March 24th said the party took place when Connecticut had no cases. But as of Tuesday, the state is now dealing with 415 cases, 270 of which are in Fairfield County, where Westport is located, according to statistics from Johns Hopkins University. So I look back and I think, did anybody from New Rochelle or Westport attend that gala in Stamford? I don't know. I never heard of anybody getting sick, but it could have easily happened. It could have been all of us there, hundreds and hundreds of people, a lot of elderly people, me, others, anybody. Hindsight is always 20/20, but looking back, we were skating on very thin ice that night, that Saturday night in March. It's a miracle that that ice didn't crack and send us all plunging into the virus-infected waters. So the next day was Sunday, March 8th. I had a gig at an open mic event at a cultural center in Putnam Valley, New York. The mood had darkened even from the night before, the Saturday night. Ripples of anxiety were ricocheting around the center as people were starting to spread out and not shake hands or anything. We were glad to leave when I did my appearance. The event wrapped up and we left. So that was Sunday. You know what happened that week of March 11th onto the 15th, 16th? That was the week that overturned everything. You know what happened. You were there. You lived through it. I don't have to describe it to you. And what's happening now, we're still tumbling along in the avalanche of social, political, and economic disaster that has continued right down to this day at the end of 2020. The wreckage is everywhere. So here we are at the last weekend of 2020. And from here, that first weekend in March in Boston and Stamford, it glimmers in my mind like a fading star from another dimension, always receding. I don't know if I'll ever be able to see it again. Thank you.